Hello, leaders of Scientology. As you are well aware, Anonymous sticks by its word. We are on the streets of Dunwoody, Georgia, once again, this April 12th of 2008. However, I'd like to remind you that you were once warned of our coming well before then. Do you remember? Think back long ago. Think back to one fateful day. It was August 8th of 2000, Boston, Massachusetts. Do you remember? It was another peaceful picket in front of one of your institutions, much like this one, but much smaller. Accompanying these pickers was one of your own followers. Do you remember? She had walked away only a few days prior after facing one too many horrors caused by your organization. She was one of your highest ranking members, working in your Office of Special Affairs. Now, do you remember what she told you as she was leaving Leaders of Scientology? She warned you that you were creating your own enemies. She urged you to do away with this policy of separating family, friends, and loved ones. She advised you to stop trying to silence anyone who opposes your underhanded practices. She tried to help you. She tried to help your followers. Do you remember what she told you days after she blew from your organization, Leaders of Scientology? She warned you that there was an army out there, and it wouldn't be just the ex-Scientologists. She told you they would not back down, and they had enough of your corrupt practices, most specifically your disconnection policy. Now, do you remember the words of Tori Bizazian 8 years ago? I'm sure you do. You declared her a heretic or a suppressive person in your own words. Now, look around you today. Look at us here today in Georgia. Look at us in London. Look at us in Florida. Look at us in New York. Look at us in California. 8 years ago, a prophecy was made, and all you could do was declare an oracle a heretic. And unlike you, this army will never forget. Now, to the members and followers of Scientology, we ask you to remember something.
We ask you to remember your mothers.
We ask you to remember your fathers.
We ask you to remember your children.
We ask you to remember your brothers.
We ask you to remember your sisters.
We ask you to remember your grandparents.
We ask that you remember your friends, loved ones, and everyone else that cares about you. Everyone that your leaders will not let you speak to just because they disagree with the practices of your organization. We also ask you to remember that we are also here for you, as we always will be, to reconnect! Here's someone ready to reconnect right now. Take it away, Ethercat.
Like he does, so
Do your best.
I will. Hi, my name is Ann, and I'm disconnected. Most of you know me as Ethercat. I've been disconnected for 10 years now, and this is my story. My friend, who I shall refer to as ex-friend, joined Scientology in 1991. We had been friends for a long time before that, and I knew him pretty well.
What up, girl?
I started to notice changes in him. He no longer had time for his friends and family, and the things he said didn't make sense. He told me Scientology had the answers to all the world's problems, and he told me he was joining staff so he could get the courses for free, because he couldn't afford them otherwise. I asked him, if Scientology has all the answers, why aren't they giving it away? I would think they would want everyone to have it. Why aren't they shouting it from the rooftops? He told me that people appreciate things more when they have to pay for them. My mind boggled. I didn't understand why he had changed so much. I didn't know where to find out about Scientology. The internet wasn't here yet. But soon an article came out in Time magazine, Scientology, the thriving cult of greed and power. I still have that issue. We talked about it, and I still have the brochure he gave me to Dead Agent the article, intended to prove that the article was full of lies, which mostly proved instead that the Church of Scientology knew how to argue ad hominem, rather than make a point-by-point rebuttal. Other friends and I discussed it. What can we do about ex-friend? My mother commented, "What has happened to ex-friend? He used to be so likable and willing to help people." I didn't know the answers to either of those questions, but I didn't like what I was seeing in him. I started to get glimpses of what Scientology was when I dialed into bulletin boards on a 2400 baud modem. But when I got on the internet in 1994, I found out there were others who knew exactly what Scientology was. And I read, aghast. I wondered if a lot of what I read was made up or exaggerated. And who wouldn't? Some of the things Scientology does are so outlandish they really are unbelievable. I later came to find out the things that I had been reading were not exaggerations nor inventions. They were true. I tried to discuss these things with him. He said it was all lies. He said if I could give him proof that these things happened, he'd go as high as he had to go to get these things stopped or get satisfactory explanations. What I soon learned, though, is that nothing constitutes proof to a Scientologist who doesn't want to see it. Nothing. Not personal testimony, not court documents, and not physical evidence. We argued. I continued reading to his dismay, and I asked him about disconnection. Did it really happen? Yes, he told me, it happens quite often. I expressed concern that he would disconnect from me, and he told me he would never do that. I remember it as plain as if it were yesterday. He got in deeper and deeper to the point to where I rarely saw him. He would come by on holidays for a short time, then he had to go back to the org. He had little to say that wasn't about Scientology. And when my mother was dying, he told me if I really wanted to help her, I should give her a touch assist. A touch assist. I've had a real hard time forgiving him for that, but I think maybe I have now. Then a mutual friend, Tony, read about Lisa McPherson, and that people worldwide were going to picket the Church of Scientology because of it. This was on December 6, 1997. He decided to picket here in Atlanta. He picketed alone, with me watching from behind some trees, because I knew ex-friend wouldn't like it, and I didn't want to harm the relationship any further. Ex-friend didn't like it. He came to visit me on Christmas night. He wanted me to make Tony stop, in his words, attacking his church. I told him I couldn't control what Tony did or how he felt, and that I wouldn't, even if I could. That I had neither the power nor the inclination to try to control someone else. When he left at 3 a.m., I had become frightened of him for the first time ever in the whole time I had known him. He was like Dr. Jekyll's Mr. Hyde, turning red with anger and bordering on violence. I asked him to leave, and he did. I hugged him as we said goodbye, knowing it might be the last time I ever saw him. And it was. I have not seen him since that night. I wrote up the story of the visit and put it on the news group on ARS. The local people saw it and were inspired to picket with Tony. And on February 28, 1998, Tony had 4 people who joined in picketing. And on March 13th, for Hubbard's birthday, 6 people picketed. I was not among them. The next day, my disconnection letter came in the mail. It said, "Dear Ann, as you may know, Tony decided to picket in front of my church again. This puts me in an impossible situation and one that I will not put up with.